Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Little bit of technical issues, but we're in, right? 6 minutes by the skin of my teeth. You guys, I hope everybody had the most amazing day. Hi, if you've never met me before, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and we're just going to let YouTube have a couple minutes, get some notifications out just to see if we can drum up anybody who is just getting ready for bed, like myself. For the norm, I like to keep on routine, but I find in bringing some change into my life that it kind of plays with almost every aspect of my life. And I have to be very careful that I don't lose that groundedness, right? I just have to recognize that I'm not particularly grounding in the same things, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be grounded. It's very important to be able to just be able to focus on something when other things are going on in the background. Because if you're anything like me, if you're highly sensitive, if you're empathic that way, if you're a bit of a loner, that we don't normally pick up on the, or maybe not pick up, maybe we're just not even included in some of those conversations and we miss out completely in them, and then we miss out on an opportunity to possibly move along a little bit easier, a little bit, I don't know, I'm not going to say more like others. I am a unique, I'm kind of used to that uniqueness. I kind of even probably embrace it a little bit. I mean they're only pink bangs, but those pink bangs, oh my goodness, did they serve me well. I Right, pink bangs, they're cute. They are cute. But I didn't start coloring my bangs for anything except I was looking to see if I can change people's perspectives of me, or at least give them a moment of just a moment to rethink a comment or an action, right? Or in a judgment sometimes, and it has served me well, being sensitive, right? People are always looking when they're getting dumped on in their life, looking for somebody to dump on. I am guilty of that. I have just woken up to these ideas, right, in the past half a dozen years or so, treading water. But it is in going back in those experiences, adventures, conversations, interactions, right? That I really get to see the part I played in all of that. And if you had asked me back then, right, I probably would have blamed it on everybody else. I would have excused, right? Like everything for me at that point in my life had become a battle to prove myself, a battle to be heard, a battle just to be appreciated, to be understood. It just seemed that it was just always butting heads with me. And, I'm very grateful for my platform, because even though I'm a unique, and even though I'm a little bit different in my way of thinking, I have found people that actually appreciate me for me. Don't appreciate me because we have all those same commonalities. We may have a few, right? that's how a friendship starts. That's how a conversation starts, is finding that one commonality. I don't know how many conversations I've been able to get myself into because I've taken interest in people's interests. And that's the truth. And at first, it wasn't because, right, I was looking to connect, that I was looking to be appreciated for what I could bring to the table, right? I was looking to put a roof over my head. And that's the truth. I was a bartender and a server. We're talking about change this week. So you get to see a lot of aspects of my life and how I rolled in from one to the next. And that's truly what life is. We do not want to stagnate. You know, one of my dreams is this curiosity of possibly coming back in another life as a Hutterite or as a Homer's person. I really appreciate the community. I really appreciate the the untouchedness, but it truly isn't untouched because in working with them in that little job, that little thrift store that put the roof over my head, I got to know them. I really got to care for a lot of them. Actually got to look forward to coming in and wheeling and dealing and having those interactions. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like they're so beautiful. Like this is a kind of community that I think I would fit very well in. And then I stop. And all I have to do is look in the mirror at the pink bangs and I'm going, no, Cindy, right? You probably wouldn't be very healthy in a community like that because you would stir the pot. You would, right, get people thinking. And it's not like I'm not that person with the picket and I'm not going to rah, rah, rah and fight for justice and things. I don't do that. Very rarely I do. I see there's a situation that needs my assistance and I have to jump in as an individual. I can do that, but when it comes to those big causes, I've yet to connect with one exact cause, right? I have these understandings if I should ever become a philanthropist where I would like my money to go to, but there are so many causes out there that would be deserving. And I thought if I did have that kind of money, I would want to be diverse in how I spread it out. So coming back to the main branch of the tree, right? We're just spewing a little bit of energy before we call it the end of the night, knowing that in the morning it's all going to be refreshed, replenished. And if we don't disperse it now, maybe we'll be up at 3 o'clock in the morning running numbers through our brains. Or maybe we might not even be able to get to sleep at all. That happens very rarely for me, in all honesty. I'm a pretty good sleeper these days as I'm getting older. Maybe there's getting up once in the middle of the night to head to the washroom, right? But for the norm, I am a good sleeper. But these are things that make it so that I can notice when there are changes, when something's not up. It's because when those hiccups, right? Those things that are not the norm, and I'm picking it up in my hypervigilance. Change is something that's always been in my life. It was introduced to me in that dynamic family that I was brought up in. And even though I didn't appreciate it in the moment, it offered up gifts and resilience, gifts in understanding that you can always start over. Tomorrow is another day. I don't know how many times I've reinvented myself in the course of my lifetime, truly, right? So many different people, so many different groups, so many different friends, different jobs, different interactions with different people in my life, right? And then those jobs that I held on to for so long because I enjoyed them so much, right? And also the fact they probably paid me very, very well for somebody who didn't go to university, right? And that was a bartender and a waitress, like I said, but those jobs offered me up skills, you guys, right? And we have to take a look at our past experiences and adventures and conversations and lessons, right? And we can appreciate the lessons in all those experiences because there are, and we can utilize them. I am so grateful for my job as a waitress and a bartender that showed me and taught me how to really take an interest in people, that it allowed me to understand that, maybe people enjoy talking a little bit more about themselves rather than listening to my experiences. But then again, some of my experience as a child, being brought up in that dynamic family, I was taught really not to have a voice. So I learned to be a good listener. I'm not so much as a good listener as I used to be because I found my voice, you guys, right? I've become comfortable in the resilience of having to build up that. In the moment it seemed like a necessity, but in the end it just ended up being something that could be added to that pile of experience, right? And every time I went to a new school, it was an opportunity for me to reinvent myself into someone or something else, right? That last school didn't work out, right? Maybe I could do better this time. Or maybe I did get one thing right and I dragged that with me into the next school, but everything else has changed. But if I did that in every single school, picked up one good trait by the end of it, who did I create? And that's truly what it is. It was somebody I created so I would be more accepted. And that's pretty sad because I lived with that for I think my entire life. But through these experiences that I had, whether they were out of the necessity of putting the roof over my head, or it was that desire to connect with others, I got to have experiences. And in those experiences, right, I earned, just like being in the brownies, right, the Girl Guides, I earned my badges. And in earning those badges, right, I'm utilizing them to the very best of my ability. Probably not perfect, but does that mean that I have to stop doing something just because it's not perfect? Because it's in the imperfectness and in the fact that I'm trying that eventually I'm going to get it right, right? It dictates it will be that way, right? It might take 100 times, but I'll get it right. And every once in a while, I'll get it right on the first time, right? And that's just the way you go. You never know which one is going to hit. Not for myself and not for anybody else. And that's a big part of the way I come in here, right? Understanding that, I'm bumbling along just like everybody else. And in this process, I've been on YouTube for 10 years and I have been graced. And I am so grateful that in those 10 years, I have picked up other characters along the way. And I'm not going to say characters because in those 10 years, we have been able to feel each other out. We have been able to connect in a way that most definitely would not have happened for me at the very least because of my hypervigilance, right? It takes a long time to make these connections sometimes. But then again, I've had some of these connections happen instantly. My husband was a one night stand who never went away. Right? He moved in with me the next day. 6 months later, we were engaged. Another 6 months later, we were married. Right? And that was a great ride. That was a great experience that was brought about some change that I had dictated in my choices. Didn't even recognize. Eventually, I lost it again. But in that moment, I was able to scoop out some real magnificent for myself, for my life. And it's only again looking back at my life that I recognized how it all came about and then how it all came about, right? And those are stories for another day. But change is never ending. Yesterday we were talking about making choices and how choices always initiate change, but how important it is for us that when we make these choices that we get into the action mode, right? Let whoever or whatever, right, recognize and understand we're on it, right? We might be crawling on the ground. We might not have any ounce of energy in us. But if we gave our word in that, we're going to do the very best that we can, right? And it's not about how much we accomplish. Um, I was taught, you got to be really proud of the effort that you put into it. And that was probably one of the biggest impactful um, um, truths that could have come across my path ever because, you know, I always felt like such a right and to have something like that come across my path, that little piece of information, because nobody could ever deny that I wasn't trying, because I was trying, right? I'm always trying, and I will always try. If you hang out with me for any length of time, you'll recognize that about me. And that's the truth, right? We're all feeling our way around in this. And the thing is, change is it's the magic. It's the key to everything, because that's our evolution, that's our movement forward, that's our survival, that's right, us not going extinct, right, in so many ways, right? Ways that I don't even understand, and yet I feel it, right? I feel how important it is for us just to keep moving, right? Not to get distracted by what wants to distract us. Like Cindy. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. I'll be back on Sunday for Chatters Live. If you want to come and hang out with our crew, amazing crew. They come in on Sunday nights and they are bigger yappers than me. If you just want to come in and say hi, amazing. If you just want to come in and just kind of feel us out in the background, I'm good with that. You know, when I started out on YouTube, I did a lot of that, right? But in that appreciation, right? I just hop in, say hi, right? You never know until you put that one foot forward. All we're expected to do is try, and that's the truth. Okay, you guys. That's my good cheer. And we'll see you Monday. We don't see you Sunday.